Hello and welcome to HN Reads. We're so excited to have you all this month. We have the incredible author Carrie Seim with us this month. She is a contributor to The Atlantic. She wrote for the New York Times, and she's also written for Nickelodeon. She's also a comedian. It's super cool. She is here this month with this fantastic new book. It is her second book. Her first book is a best-selling audiobook. This one is called Horse Girl, and it is a middle grade novel that anyone from about the ages of 7 until about the ages of 107, if you're into horses, you're going to love this one. Carrie is going to read for us. Well, everyone, welcome Carrie.
Hi guys. Hi, Horse Network. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be in HN Reads for this month, and I'm so excited to tell you a little bit about Horse Girl. I'll just give you a quick setup before I read a little excerpt from the first chapter. So Horse Girl is about a young girl named Willa who's absolutely obsessed with horses. But like many of us who love horses, she never got the chance to take riding lessons until her family moves to a new town and her parents finally allow her to enroll at the prestigious Oakwood Riding Academy. So this is pretty much the best thing that has ever happened in Willa's life. She is so excited, but when she gets to the stable, she encounters a group of mean girls, and they've been riding a long time. They're less than welcoming, and she also gets paired up with an elderly rescue horse who is a stable horse, a lesson horse. She can't afford her own horse, and Clyde is a gentle giant, but he's not that interested in jumping or trotting or really anything except for snacks. That's like Clyde's main thing. So Willa has got to deal with learning to ride this horse, and she often falls on her face, and she's got to learn how to deal with these mean girls. She often falls on her face in that regard too, but she keeps getting back on the horse because she is determined, and she is searching for her forever herd, which is that place where you belong exactly as you are. So that is the setup. I like to say it's kind of like Black Beauty meets Mean Girls. All right, here we go. Chapter 1. Heads up, Center Oxer. Amara's voice echoes through the indoor riding ring as she and Silverstreak, a gorgeous, leggy black jumper, canter toward a wooden fence in perfect rhythm. Even their glossy ponytails bounce at the exact same time, which is completely annoying. And then mesmerizing. And then annoying for tricking me into being mesmerized. Ugh! Amara is oh so politely warning everyone at Oakwood Riding Academy to get out of her way. Move it or lose it, breeches. She's basically queen of the hashtag Horse Girls, as her t-shirt helpfully explains to anyone who wasn't clear on this point. So we all at our steeds, who scatter like stable mice. Or at least they're supposed to. I, however, am perched on Clyde Lee, one of the oldest, giantest, willfulest horses at Oakwood. Clyde is half Clydesdale, half thoroughbred, and 100% not budging. He and I got matched up because I'm what they call a novice rider, aka inexperienced, aka peasant of the hashtag Horse Girls. Clyde is massive. Several hands higher than any other horse here. A sturdy bay with white feathers on 3 of his fetlocks and an ivory blaze down his muzzle. Sort of like he got caught with his nose and 3 hooves in a jar of vanilla frosting, which I can relate. And then I will just point out that the book has what I like to call hoof notes. So they can kind of explain, I can't use my camera. They explain terms for people who may not know all of the horse terms and they're just learning about horses. So for this one explains fetlocks. Fetlocks are joints on horses' legs just above their hooves. Some horses grow long, swishy feathers there, kind of like it's Spirit Day and they tied pom-poms to their ankles. All right, so then we'll go back to the story. Being half draft horse, Clyde is what my grandmother would call big boned. He wasn't bred for delicate dressage or breezy show jumping. His hooves are each the size of a medium pizza. but he works his heart out in the ring, and he's always down for a snack. In other words, we totally get each other. I'm not sure if I was built for my life either. My name might as well be, wow, you're tall for a girl. And let's face it, walking my Briar model horses through my miniature jump course in my bedroom and wearing breeches to school might have been cute in 4th grade, but it makes me certifiably dorktagious in 7th. I honestly don't care. Everyone at school thinks I'm a horse girl weirdo. I think anyone who doesn't love horses is a weirdo. Ponies are my passion, and I am leaning in. Yeah, so that's just a little setup to it.
Yay, fantastic.
Yay.
One of the other things, I'm so glad you pointed out the footnotes in it. I also love the text messages. Like the way they formatted the text messages between Wills and her mom are so cute. And all the little notes that are super important to the plot with the purple pen and like she finds them in places are so cute. I absolutely adored them. So
thank you. Yeah, we wanted to make the book fun so that it was a treat to read. So it's not illustrated per se, but there are little treats of, text message conversations, secret notes. There's a bit of a mystery in this book that Willa has to solve. She keeps getting these secret notes, and we wanted to see how that would all look and kind of give you something to look forward to every few pages.
Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about first is I wanted you to talk about Will, or Wills as she's often as it's usually shortened to. It seems like Will is only for special occasions. And yeah. Amara. How can you describe those two characters for us and the inspiration behind those two?
So absolutely. Willa is, or Wills as she's known, is our protagonist, and she's a lot inspired by my younger sister, Lindsay, who, so Lindsay and I both were completely horse crazy, and she was even more than I was, and she collected all the Briars, but we watched all the horse movies, we read all the horse books, all the Marguerite Henry, everything. And finally, our parents, we begged and begged and begged our parents, and they finally let us go to horse camp. Which wasn't even real horse camp. It was just like a rinky-dink YMCA camp that had horses 1 hour a day. But we finally got to ride horses, and that's where I discovered I was terribly allergic to horses. And my sister, I got plopped in piano lessons. She got to keep taking lessons. And so a lot of the anecdotes in the book are based on Lindsay's real lessons. I would go to the stable and watch her lessons. I loved horses. I loved watching her connection with the horses. And the horse in the book, Clyde Lee, was inspired by a real horse Lindsay rode at the stable called Clyde Lee. So that was kind of where the spark of the story came from. But I also wanted to create a character in Wills she makes a lot of mistakes, right? She's not a perfect writer. She's a new writer. And that was so fun for me to dive into character who is figuring it out as she goes. And even though she makes mistakes, she's kind of unsinkable. She falls off, or she gets knocked down, she gets back up. So that's where Wills came from. And then Amara, we needed, at first glance, she's our fun, delicious villain. She makes Will's life hard, and she runs the stable. And I think people, maybe if you have spent time around a stable, you know that some of them, not all of them, sometimes there's kind of a snobby vibe, could be. Your stable might not be like that, or any situation where some people have been doing something for a really long time, and then you bring in a newcomer, the newcomer can feel out of step. But what I love about Amara, who's quote unquote the villain, is that there's more to the story than you realize. There's more that's going on in her life that kind of comes out later.
Right. Yeah, I think that's super good. I also wondered as I was reading, like if they switched places, if they would be the same person. Like I think perhaps Amara and Wills would behave the same.
Wow.
And I was like sitting here like, huh. Yeah, I love how like delicious Amara is and her snobbiness, but you also like understand. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
All of us have been both Wills and Amara in the barn.
That's such a good point. That's such a good point. Because Amara is proud of what she's accomplished, as she should be. Maybe she hasn't figured out how to channel that pride in a productive way yet. But she adds a lot of, comic opportunities, comedic, her kind of cluelessness into how to relate socially adds a lot. The two of them not knowing how to relate to each other adds a lot of comic moments and drama.
Right? Oh, the barn drama. That's part of the joys of the barn, though, right? Part of the joy of the barn.
And I think that relates, whether or not you like horses, you can sure understand drama. Whether you're a tween or an adult, like, you can get the drama of being a new person in a situation and trying to navigate this crazy social world that you're not used to.
Yeah, exactly. I also wanted to let our audience know that if you have a question for Carrie, leave it in the comments. We would love to hear from you. We'd love questions. My next question kind of leads into this, is that you did an event with Briars. And so I wanted to hear about that. And I also wanted to know, was there a Briar horse that you and your sister loved best?
Okay. Well, yes, I recorded. I was honored to record a seminar for Briarfest, which will happen this July virtually. So anyone in the world can watch this seminar. And it was so great because we got to do it outside at a writing school in Los Angeles. And we had real young girls and boys who were writers who came, and they listened, and we created our own horse story together live. So it was really great fun. And we, again, my sister and I begged my parents when we were kids to go to the Kentucky Horse Park where Briarfest normally would be. And one summer we were driving to Florida, and we were allowed to, they made us stop there so we could go enjoy it. And the plan was for me to go in July and sort of have this full circle moment where I was returning to Briarfest. Unfortunately, it's virtual, but it's still going to be great fun. And so let me show you my favorite Briar.
Oh, she's getting it.
We have a visual aid.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, and you can tell if you look at the cover, why I might like this buddy. This is really from our childhood attic. And my parents dug it out so I could bring it on my book tour.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, isn't it?
Oh man, that's so great. I'm so glad you had it handy too. Right?
Yeah,
I know there's
so nice.
There's still lots of boxes of Briars in the attic.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I have some boxes of these.
They keep offering me, do you need some more? Or do you want to get something? That's okay. I'll just travel with my friend here.
I know I have the one. Yeah.
But it's amazing because it really draws in kids, whether or not they know about Briars. Like, I set him up in when I'm doing book talks, and it really, kids can instantly relate to that. Like, there's something magical about a real horse, or even this. And the other thing I like about talking about Briars in the book is that a lot of people can love horses and they've never even met a horse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also love the way that it's integrated in the book. Like, all the notes are kept under Seabiscuit's hooves on her shelf upstairs. Like, it's so cute. Also, that Briar horses too, even though Briarfest was virtual last year, they still, I think, sold out of tickets. I need to fact check that for sure. But the number of tickets they even were able to sell virtually was insane. I remember reading about it.
It's huge. It's a thing. And I think back, any birthday, any holiday, that's all my sister wanted. That was it. And we would, drive to small towns where they might have the one in stock. And if one of their feet got broken off, tragedy. So yeah, they're a big deal. And it's a really cool world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the other person I also wanted to bring up, since you brought up your sister, was Will's sister, Kay. You're right, Kay's super brainy. She's doesn't really care about the barn. She doesn't want the stuff in. She has allergies. So are you more Kay in that situation?
Bingo, you got it. So yeah, so Kay is the big sister, and they have a very Ramona and Beatrice relationship, these two sisters, and it's really she is in many ways inspired by me. I was allergic to horses. I did all of those clubs. Kay does a bunch of activities. She does trivia club, and drama club, and math club, and where her younger sister is mostly focused on horses. So I wanted to play that up. And I also, Kay's kind of a cranky cranky little lady sometimes. And so I loved inspiring this character who's sometimes kind of the bad guy based on me. And it was really fun to kind of bring up, oh gosh, the ways I must have been kind of mean to my little sister when I was younger. And they have arguments through the laundry chute up and down. And we definitely, that's definitely pulled from real life. There was a lot of shouting through the laundry chute in our house.
So what inspired you to, so like, it sounds like there's a lot of, your own life in this book somewhat, but what inspired you to write it?
Yeah, well, one of my biggest inspirations was to write, I just wanted to write a funny story for girls, because there aren't a ton of books that are aimed at girls that are comic and funny and not super serious or dark. This book has a lot of emotions. We go through a lot, but it also has a lot of lightness to it and a sense of humor. And that was something that I really, wanted to add. And I wanted to write this capsule that was inspired by my childhood about a time in life where everything, when you're a tween, you're really in between childhood and adulthood. And you go back and forth. And horses are one of these things that is a perfect metaphor for going back and forth, right? They're comforting. They're these creatures maybe from your imagination, and that's the childhood part. But they're also strong and independent and powerful, and that's the adulthood part. So it was so fun to connect through a horse and to explore this time in life when everything is so important. Like every small thing is so high stakes, whether it's your family, your friends, your school. It just all seems so important. And maybe you're like me, like everything, I'm still very emotional, but you're really super emotional at that time of life. And it was really fun to write.
So this is the $1 million question, so no pressure on this one. What do you think it is about tween girls and horses that creates this magic that you see so often? What is it? What is the magnetism? What is the secret sauce?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit what I was just talking about, is that horses symbolize this comfort of childhood, this tactile comfort. They're gentle creatures. They're also very, like, they're really connected with humans easily. You can walk up to many stranger horses and they're so friendly to you. Not all of them, but many of them are. But then, yeah, it's that idea of like, but I could run away on this thing. I could be free, I'm literally elevating myself if I'm riding a horse up to this higher level of power. And that's really a cool thing too. So yeah, but there's just something universal about teen, tween, young girls and horses. There's some love there that we can't explain, some magical element.
Fabulous. So we talked a little bit behind the scenes about this, but I definitely wanted to know. The audiobook is utterly fabulous.
Oh.
And you recorded it. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah, so I had to audition for the audiobook. Even though I had my previous book, The Flying Flamingo Sisters, was also an audiobook, I only played one character in that. And for Horse Girl, the audition was to narrate the entire book. So they were like, we don't get your hopes up. We don't usually hire authors. But I went through all the rounds of auditions and they ended up picking me, which was really, really nice. And I was so excited. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I have to come up with like 16 voices now. What have I done? Who would write a scene with 12 characters in the same scene? So I was cursing myself as I was recording it, just because I had to figure out going back and forth between the voices. And there were men, like there's Willa's dad is in it, and there's boys who ride horses, so I had to do boy voices and girl voices, but it was really fun. I obviously recorded during the pandemic, so I created a little booth in a closet, and the directors kind of zoomed in or FaceTime, whatever it was, with me, and we had to do it all remotely. So I was doing all the voices, around with like winter coats around me and a mattress above me, and it was wild.
Yeah, I bet you it was wild. The voice that's like popping into my head now that I'm thinking about it is the dad, and he's like the ultimate horse show dad. Can you describe the dad for us and tell us about the dad?
Yeah. So he loves his daughter. He's really excited for her. He is full of dad jokes, but in his enthusiasm, he frequently mortifies her because he's always shouting encouragement. Hey, Willa, look alive. You're doing good, kiddo. But he's saying all these things loudly, and everyone in the stable is looking at him. He's kind of like what you would expect for a coach of any sport who's like shouting encouragement from the sidelines. But he also reminds Willa that she needs to honor her obligations, be a good friend, be a good family member. He's trying his best too. Will's mom is an Air Force pilot, and she's stationed overseas at the moment. So the dad is holding down the fort with these two teenage girls, a lot of drama. And a lot of drama in the house and a lot of drama with the horses. And he's just trying to, stay afloat, really.
The other horse that was also makes a big appearance in the book is Minnie, right? Can you describe her for us? I loved her. Like, I also like both the horses that were like the two main horses were such a pleasure.
Yeah, so Minnie is she's a Welsh cob. And so she's not quite a pony, but almost a pony. And it's a fun juxtaposition because Clyde, as you heard from the first chapter, is giant and Minnie is tiny. And we say that Minnie looks like an underdone pancake with powdered sugar, sprinkled on her with her little dappling. And Minnie, unlike Clyde's like slow and not that interested. Minnie is ready to go, and she's like a rocket. And I loved having those two horses. There are many horses in the book, but those are the two that Will's rides. And I think it's fun because it's a good, most people who are riding can't afford their own horse. So it's good to learn what it's really like and how you can learn something different from different horses. Horses can teach you different things, and it's really good to get experience with a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. And what? Go for it.
I was just going to show that horses are just as much individual characters as people.
Yeah, I think that comes super clear through the book. And it's also interesting how the horses also like represent their people in different way. Like Amara's horse is very, very, very graceful and luxurious. And
let's put together.
Yeah. And then there's Clyde, who just wants to be friends, kind of like Willa. Like it's kind of lovely.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you.
What kind of research did you do for the book? Because I know you said that your sister was more of the horse girl than you were in some way.
I had to do so much research. So it started with interviewing my sister a lot and writing down her stories. I talked to trainers, young riders, older riders. I also had two veterinarians extensively read the book because I wanted to get the vet stuff and the health stuff with the horse correct. That was a challenge because it's a very important part of the book, and it had to work for the story, but I wanted it to be accurate. I also got, this is really old school, but I got like the encyclopedia of the horse, and it was so useful for the anatomy and the parts and like a lot of, so you have your first horse books, like grooming tips and a lot of research.
Yeah. Was there a part that was the most challenging to research?
I would say it was definitely the veterinarian stuff because it's just very, very technical, and I had to make sure I wanted to get it right and be realistic about it. No easy fixes.
That's a super good point, because one of the things that impressed me was that a lot of the time, especially young adult, children's, and middle grade novels about horses, they're either too serious or too fluffy, and you have this fantastic balance. How were you able to achieve that? That might be way too technical, but let's go for it anyway.
Well, I did want to have that balance in terms of it is an emotional moment when something goes wrong with the horse, who is also your friend, who you love, and there's a lot of emotion and pain, but I also don't want to get too dark. And I didn't want an easy fix. So I just looked at like what would really happen and what could happen. And then also contrast that with, what would a tween girl dream? How could she dream she could solve this? You know, maybe she thinks, I'll fix everything. I have a great idea. And of course she concocts a crazy plan that goes all wrong. But that added levity to it, because when you are that age, you're like, I'm going to fix this myself, even if the vet and the adults are telling me not, I'm not going to give up. I have a plan. And I think that helps add a humor and levity to the heavier moments.
Yeah. Again, just so our audience knows, if you have any questions for us, please let us know. We'd love to answer them for you.
Ooh, and look at that. Magically one appears.
It looks like we have a question. Sarah Kennedy wants to know how long it took you to write the book.
So altogether, thank you, Sarah, by the way. Altogether, I'd say about a year, with the caveat that I wrote another book in the middle. So it's wild. I wrote half of Horse Girl, then I wrote the Flying Flamingo Sisters, and then I wrote the second half of Horse Girl all in about a year. And I would just write. I had a day job. I write and edit for newspapers and magazines, so I was doing kind of my day writing, and then on nights and weekends I was doing the book writing. So it was, I'll never do that again, by the way. It was a crazy plan to try to do both. I mean, it was great. It was great to have both opportunities and to have sold two ideas at the same time. But it was a lot to juggle, and I did not have much of a social life.
What were your days like?
Painful. No, it was just, I had to take I took a break. So I wrote the first half of Horse Girl, then jumped into Flying Flamingo Sisters because that had a fast, earlier deadline. Then I had to take a pause before I went back to the second half of Horse Girl because I was kind of getting burnt out. And then dove in, but I just really had to keep a calendar. I had to say, like, okay, I got to get through this many pages tonight, and even if they're bad, I'll go and revise them. But by the end of the week, I've got to get this chapter done. And I just did it, even when and one of the tricks is, like, just write something, even if it's bad, just write something, and then make it better, make it better, make it better. Otherwise, I would have been paralyzed if I was trying to write something good every night.
What does your revision process look like?
Well, one thing I learned is that I definitely need an outline before I even start. And I didn't have this, I had a very loose outline for Horse Girl, and then I learned from that. And for Flying Flamingo Sisters, I had the most detailed, like, it's half the book length of outline because I really need that. And then I had to go back and revise the outline for Horse Girl to figure out, because I was like, uh-oh, I didn't think this through. Who wrote the notes? You know, like, it was just crazy that I had the hubris to go into it without much of an outline. And then, yeah, if I can get through the scene or the chapter, even if it's bad, but I know what the action is, then I'll go back, whatever. If I write the bad version during the week, then I can spend the weekend punching it up, or opposite. I write the bad version on the weekend and then spend the weekdays making the lines better and snappier and funnier. And yeah, and then it's just, you go through chunks. So I'm like, okay, I've got this chapter I revised. Now I'm going to do this section that I revised. And it's really important to take time away and then come back and look at it with fresh eyes and figure it out. And then I have a small group of dear, like, my brain trust, who give me notes and feedback, which is my sister, my parents, and one of my best friends.
That sounds like you've got a great group of readers.
So useful.
Yeah, I remember, like, being about the age that, you know, that is set for your book, and just being so fascinated with the fact that there was a revision process and that you had to write things more than once. Like, I always just assumed when I was 7 that, like, everyone magically just wrote things perfectly the first draft.
Well, that's why a lot of people get discouraged about writing, because you, as often said, you're comparing your first draft to someone's final draft.
Mm-hmm.
You don't realize that. And the other interesting thing for me is that the publishing process can really take a long time. So even after I turned in the manuscript, it took another year for the book to come out. And there's a lot of waiting around. And then suddenly they're like, oh, here's all your notes from the copy editor, and we need these back in a week, and the entire book. So So it's kind of a wild ride, and you just have to hang on. Fortunately, one of my day jobs is editing a magazine. So I'm used to editing, and I'm a tough editor on myself, which you have to learn to be. Not on the first draft, maybe not on the second draft, but you got to be really tough on yourself. It comes in handy.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's brutal.
It's a lot like riding horses. Like that first time you learn to pose a trot, your pose is not going to be pretty.
Yeah,
it takes lots and lots of revision.
Yes.
In order for the trot to be pretty.
Yeah. You have to learn. You exercise certain skills over and over and over until you get them. And even now, I'm like, it feels like every time I start something new, I'm like, this should be easier by now, but it's not the first time. It's just not. It's always a process.
Yeah. Yeah. What advice would you give to those who would like to write a book?
Okay. Well, I would first of all say, take notes in your real life anytime something makes you excited or some wild idea passes by or some memory. This book was a lot of memory for me, childhood nostalgia, but it could be a person, a neighbor, like, oh, that's a fun character, or a situation. And just keep your notes in your phone or in a notebook, whatever works for you. But inspiration rarely strikes when you're like sitting at a blank screen, like, it's so much more likely to strike when you're out living your life or in the shower or thinking about something else. So don't let those ideas get away, grab them. And then in terms of nuts and bolts, like there are so many great books on writing that are really helpful, like Stephen King's book called On Writing, and Anne Lamott has a book called Bird by Bird. Those are my number 2 recommendations for people who want to read a book.
Great book.
Yeah. They'll just kind of get you up to speed a little bit. And outline.
So how did you get involved in children's books? Or I guess this is middle grade. How does that become the books that you were writing?
Oh, it was so wild. So I was performing comedy in Los Angeles at the Groundlings Comedy Theater, which is sort of like Second City. It's where a lot of the Saturday Night Live people come from. And I went through the whole program there, and I performed live on stage every Sunday as part of their Sunday company. And I actually got flown to New York to audition for Saturday Night Live, and I got cast on Inside Amy Schumer, and I did a bunch of commercials. And then some of people from Nickelodeon, some development executives would come to the show, and I ended up getting hired to write a Nickelodeon live show for their kids, for their up-and-coming talent. And then from that, I got hired to write on Nickelodeon TV shows. And this is the craziest way to get into books, but I was in a canoe with a friend, and his friend, whom I didn't know, turned out to be a book editor. And he said, oh, you write for kids shows. I'm looking for funny books for girls. So if you ever have an idea, send it to me. And I was like, oh, sure, this guy, and I ended up sending him this Horse Girl idea, and lo and behold, they bought it, and it became a book. So you just never know when magic can strike. That's certainly a very rare path, but I had prepared for it in many ways because I had been writing in all kinds of genres for years. And then I realized, oh no, I don't know how to write a book. I have to write a book now. So I read a lot of books on how to write a book and just did my best. And I also tried to bring kind of a new voice to it. It's written in the first person. It's like a diary. And so my writing is, since I'm used to writing scripts, it's very driven by the character and the voices. So that's my approach to writing books, through the characters.
Fabulous. If I will put one more call out for questions, if there are any. And then my last question of the night is, what are you working on next?
So I'm working on multiple things, which I said I wouldn't do again, but I am. So I'm working on the Flying Flamingo sequel. And by the way, that book was inspired by my my grandfather was in a flying circus in the 1930s, so that book is inspired by my. Yeah.
Okay, you have to tell me about that now.
Yeah, so it's super exciting. So the book is set in the 1930s and it's recorded like a radio play. So there are all kinds of actors. Some of them are really famous Broadway actors, and there's sound effects and there's music. And it's about these three sisters who their parents are famous aviators, and their parents go missing, and these girls have to join a flying circus and travel around the country, and then they travel across the ocean, and they're trying to rescue their parents. And so it's sort of like Indiana Jones in the skies, you know? Or we also said like the Goonies meets Indiana Jones, that kind of a vibe. Yeah, it was inspired by my grandfather's real 1930s flying circus. He flew a plane, and they had women and men in the circus who were wing walkers, and they did crazy acrobatics. And I was doing some research on it, and I found a news article from this Minnesota paper that had the show program that they used to do, and all the tricks and all the names. My grandfather, and nobody in my family had ever seen this article, and it was so exciting. So I used that to write the book. So I'm working on the sequel to that, and I'm writing on another kids show called Kid Correspondent, which is like a daily show for kids kind of thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It looks like we've got one more question. Let's see what it is. Has Carrie ever had a heart horse? So a horse that was like your favorite. I know you know what a heart horse is.
I love that term. Oh my God.
Right?
I love that term. Well, I have to say, my favorite is Clyde Lee, because he was inspired by my sister's favorite heart horse at her stable. And he was just so wonderful with kids. Like, some horses are just great. And it was funny. It's wild that the biggest guy is the best with the littlest kids. But there was something intuitive that he knew how to take care of them and teach them, and that was special. And then my other recent experience was I was just on a trail ride, like summer vacation trail ride, nothing that exciting, but my horse, we went over a creek, and the horse decided he wanted to take a shower or bath and go swimming, and I went with him. And I just love a horse with that kind of gumption.
Right, just like, meh. Yeah. Are you still as allergic as you were as a child?
Oh, I discovered Claritin and allergy medicine.
Oh, yeah.
Now I can ride, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. I know lots and lots of people who are super allergic to horses, and they just pop a lot of drugs to get
but now it's so much easier. I feel like it wasn't easy when I was a kid, but now it's like no problem.
Right? Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Oh, I love heart horse though. Oh, I'm gonna use that. I want to use that now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Isn't it cute? I love that term.
So cute.
All right. Is there anything else that I missed, Carrie, that you wanted to go over?
No, the only thing I'd just like to say is that anyone can be a horse girl. You don't have to be a girl. You don't have to be young. You can be any age, any gender. You never have had to have met a horse or ridden a horse. You just have to love horses with all your heart.
Oh, fantastic. Also, I think we have the link for your book, so where people can order it. Thank you to Echo Shopper for sponsoring the show. Thank you to Carrie for coming on. You're an absolute queen, and the book is fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And there's a lot of info on thehorsegrowbook.com where to order, as well as like live events. If I happen to be in your town, come say hi or hey.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gretchen. Thanks, Horse Network. Bye, guys. Thanks, HN Reads.